Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I'm Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
And I'm Adam.
Today, a little later than we would have liked, but we are finally talking about Ridley Scott's Napoleon, starring Joaquin Phoenix as the man himself. Adam, what is Napoleon about?
A personal look at the French military's leader's origins and swift, ruthless climb to emperor, viewed through the prism of Napoleon's addictive, volatile relationship with his wife and one true love, Josephine.
Yeah, so this is a movie that we were highly anticipating. I think if you asked every single one of us, it would have easily been in our top 10 most anticipated movies of the year. Mm-hmm. We dedicated basically an entire month to watching movies, to watching big period pieces on Exploring Cinema, our other YouTube channel where we dive into older movies, just because we were getting hyped.
Yep.
Ridley was back with a huge Napoleon movie. This felt like a big 90s epic, like Braveheart or Gladiator or all kinds of movies. I was super excited. Did this live up to the hype for you guys? Positive, a little higher, a little lower? Where'd you come in?
Well, for me at least, I feel like my experience with it was all about context, because I see the reviews and I see it's not getting great scores and I see what people say, what they don't like about it. But for me, I don't know if you guys had this experience, but this whole month watching Mozart, Barry Lyndon, and The New World, which are Amadeus, all set, Amadeus, Barry Lyndon, The New World, which are all set in the same kind of time period, roughly, and they're very long, and they're very serious, and they're very beautiful, and it felt like going from that to this movie, which is like same costumes, same settings, but like action packed and kind of dumbed down and kind of just like, whoa, all over the place. I had a great time. I think it was just what my brain needed. I felt like, especially after Barry Lyndon, this just felt like my brain was just like, oh yeah, I don't like have to think as hard all the time for these long movies. And I didn't know a lot about Napoleon's story, so even though it's kind of been a criticism that it's just like almost a Wikipedia summary of like his rise and fall, like they try to cram so many events in that's a problem. Because I didn't know any of those details, I was intrigued the whole time. I was pretty much like fascinated with how he got there and what was going to happen next the whole time. So that was my experience. I was very entertained.
Agreed. The only thing I really knew was the defeat at Waterloo. And obviously that he was like a major general. But we didn't really learn about him a ton in school and stuff. So I didn't know that much going in either. So I was very, very happy to learn that those parts were there, and they did cram a bunch in there. And I will say, in reference to the Barry Lyndon and the Amadeus and stuff, I'm so glad we watched all those because it made me appreciate a lot more of this. I think maybe just a little bit deeper. I don't think like I truly loved it. I think it's fine. I think like the battle scenes are good. I was expecting them to be maybe a touch longer or to have like one huge like 20-minute one. And I think the first one we got was probably the longest.
I mean, it definitely, I think it went for quantity over quality. With the battles.
So like I think the scale would have been the scale was what I lacked in like one of the battles, but I'm glad that we got a couple because that kept it a little bit like lively, especially as he's going around different areas in Europe and like being away from Josephine and all that kind of stuff, and how that dynamic shifted and changed and all that kind of thing. But I overall I liked it. I just wouldn't say I loved it compared to the other ones we watched this month.
I think I had a really good time with this. I'm sort of like, I wouldn't say I loved it, but I had a very good time at the movie theater.
Yeah.
I think if you go into this with kind of like Braveheart in mind, it's not going to be that.
No.
Because kind of my biggest issue, which not a huge problem, but I don't think this movie is very interested in kind of putting a lot of these battles into like geopolitical context.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Where there's not like a big buildup where you get with Braveheart, where you're kind of following this one guy and seemingly a similar type movie. But each battle in Braveheart feels like all the players and the stakes of everything. Whereas a few of these battles, I just kind of felt like, what happens if they lose?
Yeah. What are we trying to accomplish here?
It didn't feel that weighty, although like the spectacle of it was phenomenal. Like the staging and the way they recreated everything was great. I think if you really enjoy like bitchy palace intrigue, you're gonna have a lot to chew on here, because that's where, Adam, you mentioned kind of at the beginning, a lot of this is viewed through his relationship with his wife Josephine, played by Vanessa Kirby. And there are so many scenes where they're just so mean to each other, but in such an amusing way, because they're arguing for the most part about like really petty shit, and they're just kind of trying to win. And they're just kind of dicks to each other for not a lot of great reasons. They're just some very funny fights. Like Joaquin Phoenix and Ridley Scott together kind of portray Napoleon as just kind of a brat.
Yeah,
a little bit,
is
a little entitled.
Yeah, which is for the most part, like, I think very funny. One thing I do want to include is that this starts basically with the beheading of Marie Antoinette. So there's not as much French Revolution stuff as there could be, really, that I was kind of hoping for. That's kind of where I was hoping there would be a big focus here, but it's not, and that's fine. That's just a choice that they made to kind of, you got to start it somewhere.
Yeah.
The story's huge. I mean, I think there's a reason we haven't seen like too many attempts.
That's fair.
And why like Kubrick's kind of long planned Napoleon movie eventually fell through and didn't happen is just, this is a massive story. And you just kind of got to pick a direction to take it, and they do. And I think for the most part, they execute what they chose to put on screen pretty well. I'm very curious about this rumored 4-hour version that's going to be on Apple TV, because mostly I just don't know where there's going to be more. Is it just going to be like, I doubt there's going to be too much more at the beginning or more at the ending. But is it just going to be like more of him and Vanessa Kirby just like trade jabs? Are we going to get a little bit more, a few more like war meetings and like understanding of what was going on in like Europe at this time?
That's probably
that's where I would hope for more. But there's also a possibility that just more just of a bitchy marriage could be very funny as well.
Yeah. I will say this felt a lot like a sophomore attempt at a Gladiator. I know he did Gladiator. I know Ridley Scott did Gladiator, but like this is not as good as Gladiator in my opinion. It's Joaquin Phoenix was a very similar character, but I feel like Gladiator.
I like it better than Gladiator.
I think Gladiator is more fun, like by a mile. Gladiator.
I don't know if that's like a hot take, just because Gladiator is super popular. Although there's been kind of a weird like movement in the last 5 years of people being like, "Is Gladiator good?"
Yeah.
So I don't know where most people are going to fall on that, but I think for us, like Gladiator is one of those just kind of epics that we grew up with.
For sure. Well, like the opening battle scene in that is, that's exactly what I was looking for.
20 minutes of Gladiator is
right. Like that's what I'm looking for in this, and we get a lot of the same.
I mean, I think the stagings of like, especially that battle, like on the ice from the trailer, like the execution there, I think is as good as the opening battle in Gladiator for sure.
That's fair.
The stakes, maybe you don't feel as much.
Yeah. The personal connection, the personal stakes I felt like weren't as there as much. I mean, I even felt like with their romance, I didn't really feel like kind of a through line through the whole movie of like, oh, this is really like a deep portrayal of like a great love story. It did kind of feel just like scenes of them kind of bitching at each other and like kind of a scattershot portrait of their relationship. And I can see why people would say, oh, that was hollow to me. But for me, it was like, it covered the big stuff and it just moved so fast. It was just that and battles and that and political stuff and that. And like, by the time I was thinking, I don't think this scene is very good. It was like, all right, new scene. We're in Prussia. And we're getting ready for a huge battle. And I'm like, okay, I'm back in.
We're
like,
back here,
I was gonna say with the battle scenes particularly, the sweeping shots of the charging horses, goosebumps, gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
Nailed that. And then also the cannonballs, how they they looked and how they sounded. That was, I mean, those two things made every battle sequence very like, I don't know, like I said, I was thrilled during the battle sequences because it was even like, and that era of fighting can be kind of boring, kind of the lineup and we all shoot at each other and then we step forward and then we shoot at each other, and it seems kind of like, I don't know, why don't they just fight? But this kind of captured like because there was there was the way to do it, but then eventually it is just a charge and it is just fist of, hand to hand.
Yeah.
It is just like who has more cannons. And I like the comment about the geometry and knowing where to put cannons is such a big thing to his success. I found that all really well done. The battle scene stuff, like to your point, Adam, maybe not one epic, Helm's Deep-esque battle, but a lot of the way they were shot was fun and exciting. There's one where like the cavalry line charges and they like jump over the line and he like gets somebody with his sword as they jump, and like that, and it's shot like the horse is coming at you. Oh wow, love that shot, love that. I was like, yes.
Yeah, I think maybe the Waterloo battle is probably like the big one, maybe, but it feels not as good because obviously they lose. Like,
and I think the movie's aware that the audience all knows that he's going to lose this.
Yeah.
It's like
it should be,
yeah.
There's a reason like that's the one people have heard of.
Yeah. Well, and they even go to like the lengths to say like, all right, we've got 120,000 men on our side. They've got 40,000 over here, 80,000 over there, 120 there, and like 150 there, and they're all going to combine and they're going to attack us. We're like, all right, we got it. And it's like,
the
numbers at least don't add up. You as a viewer should be able to pick that up. But
I also really loved the everything that happened when he is at like the height of his power and leads the multinational coalition into Russia. I had forgotten the details of his invasion of Russia. I had forgotten like how it played out, how they burned. I had forgotten.
That's the only part I knew,
and that was so cool when they got there at the end. When they get there and he's riding his horse around like an empty city, like so cool.
Yeah, that was all stuff that I'd completely forgotten. I was talking to my dad like a month before this movie came out. And I was just like, what? Like, I couldn't remember why he invaded Russia. So when you don't remember, or you don't know, it just sounds like the dumbest thing you've ever heard of.
Well, like never invade Russia in the winter.
Yeah,
because of him. That's how you know.
Yeah,
that.
we all learned that from The Princess Bride.
That as well.
But yeah, no, very fascinating. I was gonna say, should we just quick touch on Ridley Scott and kind of just how you feel like this? Because I felt like when I look at his filmography, it's a lot of high peaks and low valleys. And I feel like in general, I mean, let's just run down like, obviously Alien and Blade Runner and Black Hawk Down and whatnot. But then there's also like The House of Gucci and Alien Covenant and Robin Hood and
I mean, like American Gangster, Body of Lies,
some movie called The Counselor and Exodus,
Prometheus?
Gods and Kings, and I feel like,
oh yeah, and he did G.I. Jane.
Yeah.
Well, and we're setting up for Gladiator 2.
I feel like in
comes out
general,
next year. Like
this falls on the better half.
I agree with that.
I would agree with that.
Like his run recently. Also, he's like 86 or something like that now.
Yeah, he's just
still making like a movie a year.
Yeah.
And kind of recently, it's been very hit or miss. Like House of Gucci, I think we all agree was not a good movie.
Yeah.
Last Duel is kind of in the middle for me. Like I think it's okay.
Yeah.
I like Napoleon better than either of those.
For sure.
I really
agree with that.
I really like The Martian.
The Martian's great.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like your point here of kind of like, very big peaks and valleys for. Oh, he did Matchstick Men too. I forget about that. That's a really good movie.
An American Gangster. I forget. I just I think
I've never seen Kingdom of Heaven.
I saw it like way when it came out. I think I would give it a second chance. All about the Crusades and stuff. Right. But I think it's all right. But in general, I guess in the Ridley Scott,
definitely upper half Ridley.
This
is true.
Maybe not top tier Ridley. I mean, definitely not Alien top tier Ridley
or like Blade Runner.
But but good, better half Ridley. I think we're all in agreement.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. It's a director you can trust by and large, especially with like big historical stuff. I mean, Gladiator again. That's completely inaccurate. But
it seems like now,
but he knows what he's doing with that.
But also, because he had been so hit and miss, I actually came in with kind of low expectations, which also probably worked to the advantage. I felt like I was just in the right headspace to be entertained.
High hype.
I know that a lot of people came in looking for deeper story or deeper or like more accurate, or I can totally see all these reasons why you wouldn't like it. But I had a good time.
I saw it at the end of the day on Thanksgiving. With 3 other people, and we all just had a blast.
And
it definitely wins you over.
My last point that I just wanted to make when I was seeing it is I feel like also a lot of there's going to be a lot of people, general audience, who maybe the last movie they saw in theaters was Oppenheimer, and also just because biopic big name director.
Yeah.
They're into that. They think, hey, Oppenheimer was great. I'm going to go in for Napoleon. And I just feel like it's not operating at that level.
No.
Like it's not. Oppenheimer is doing all sorts of things. That's like, it's trying to say a lot. It's showing a lot. It's going deep on the character work. And this is not that, but it's okay. I thought it was okay, but I just feel like that can be another reason maybe why for the harsh critique or just the harsh audience score. Cause I just think it wasn't what people expected.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Curious to see how the longer version gets received.
I'm definitely watching that 4-hour version though.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
All right. We want to dive into the stars.
Let's do it.
We'll be right back.
Okay. Do we even need to throw all of ours up there? Because it sounds like we all agree.
Yeah, we're all the same with this episode.
Yeah, so 3.5 from me, 3.5 from Dylan, 3.5 from Adam. We all had a really good time with this. It's not amazing.
Nope.
But I think if you're kind of feeling the general vibe of this movie, then you're gonna have a pretty good time.
Agreed. Yeah, kind of a throwback. Ridley Scott, not trying to reinvent the wheel. He's doing it kind of his way, the way he wanted to do it. Some people might say it's just a Wikipedia summary costume drama. But I was entertained, and I would watch it again, and I'm here for the 4-hour version. But yeah, it's not a great movie. It's not. I guess before we just one last thing too, Nate, you've mentioned that you really love this period of history, but you don't. But you don't feel like there's a lot of movies that are like, amazing or portray it, like that really nail it for you. Did this scratch that itch, or still no?
The biggest reason I would say I lean not quite with that, because it doesn't really have any interest in providing like the geopolitical sense of like what was going on in Europe at that time. And that's a lot of the stuff that I find really interesting. Yeah. But again, like I said, I really like this movie, but it doesn't even do that in a way that like Coppola's Marie Antoinette does for me.
I can see that.
Okay.
All right, over to Adam.
Same thing. This is 3.5. I have nothing else really to say. It's good, not great. You're gonna enjoy it. You'll eventually fall in love with certain aspects of it. I think some of the interplay between him and his wife is a little touchy at times, but it's it serves its purpose and it's solid. And it's a little bit funnier than I thought it would be. So there's
for sure.
There's definitely some good comebacks from people that are fun. So,
and I would say worth it to see it on the big screen too.
For sure,
though it is coming out. I think so. The battle scenes worth checking out.
Yeah.
All right, whose turn is it to put a wrap on the show?
That would be mine.
All right, Nate, take it away.
Destiny has brought me this lamb chop.